Hi, my name is Jonathan Baruch, and I'm here with MMRTI. And once again, we have a very highly honored guest here with us today. And if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Garrett-Smalls. I'm the Central Area Coordinator of Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative.
Nice. And SYVPI does a lot of things for the community and a lot of youth around the King County. And do you want to get a little bit into kind of what your organization is focused on or your...
Yeah, so my organization, the umbrella organization that we're under is Therapeutic Health Services. So and specifically, we're contracted through the city to provide services for Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. And our main goal is to engage young people in seeing a little further down the road than they're capable of seeing on their own. Some of the angles that we're really taking with young people is seeing their lives through the lens of academics, seeing their lives through the lens of societal justice, and seeing their lives through the lens of helping others beyond just helping themselves.
Thank you. And in light of the fact that here in February we've had Black History Month just recently, what is your perspective on the current state of racial relations within either the U.S. or King County specifically?
Well, in the U.S., I think the state of race relations is kind of a regional thing. I think regionally, a lot of individuals and groups have kind of held on to some of the things of the past. And I'm not saying that a lot of those things need to be forgotten, but progress needs to still happen. As far as being people of color, we've got to take advantage of the academic offerings and the ability to get educated. Yep. We have to be self-motivated to finish high school at the tops of our class, you know, that talented 10th, that cream of the crop. And then we need to matriculate on into whether it's community college or four-year college or the trades. But we as a people and people of color have to understand that academics and education is going to be the key to unlocking a lot of doors. And even if the individual does not want to educate themselves, they still need to make sure the door is open for their kids and their kids' kids. Yep. They can be a mentor in the community, nieces, nephews. They're eventually going to be grandparents sometime down the road. So we have to begin to see life as much bigger than the life we want to live for ourselves, and do some of the things in life that it's going to take to progress neighborhoods and communities versus what I as an individual want to do and my sight or lack thereof as an individual.
Yep.
So in King County, being in the state of Washington, there are a lot of resources for community-based and grassroots organizations. So we have to create a vibrant pipeline, and that pipeline is going to really understand, a pipeline is really going to begin with an understanding that our young people, again, need to see life bigger than themselves. Academically, there has to be a focus. Families have to re-engage the schools. The schools need to become the hubs of communities as far as academics go. And there has to be some social setting and a forum where the families, the elders, and the young people can get together and see life through a common lens. Yep. We can't continue to live life on our own thinking things will be okay, because they will not be okay. So some of the things that we're pushing on, I know you have a bunch of questions, but I've been speaking, a lot of our students that are struggling, a lot of our African American boys are struggling. And one of the things that I really need to get some understanding is ELL, English language learners, that applies to every young person who grows up in a household and their family is not proficient in speaking good English. If you come from a background and slang is the main language spoken, because Ebonics is considered a language of sorts in many circles, but if slang and Ebonics are spoken primarily in your home, then your student would be that new generation of ELL, ESL. So I think a lot of special ed classes and a lot of the things that are going on in school, if we could just change the lens of how we view these things, we don't have to change the entire system. But we need to begin to find, each school needs to find small cohorts and roll some different cohorts of kids into some ELL, ESL classes and begin to give them the necessary skills that it's going to take to progress. Yep. So, you know, that issue of race relations, it has to begin with us. Each individual group has to stand up, and standing up is hard. And I'm not saying things haven't existed in the past that have caused people to sit down or lack legs to stand up. But 2015, we have to make some different decisions. We have to begin to think differently in order to do differently.
Completely agree. And so, with saying that, what do you think is the role of individuals within the community in this movement for social equality? Like you said, a very integral part of us kind of progressing as a people and as a society is education and academics. But what do you see as an active role that someone can pursue to help perpetuate this social progression?
Well, some of the active roles that individuals can pursue are going to be based on us as individuals seeing the bigger picture. As individuals, our young people need to learn a formalized respect. There has to be a throwback mentality, whereas as a young person, I will sit down, I will calm down, I will stop cursing, I will stop acting as if I don't have good sense just because adults are in my presence. We've hand-fed a lot of our young people to believe that life is all about them, and with that sense of entitlement comes a lack of respect. So disrespect is paramount right now in our communities, and we're to a point where our elders don't feel comfortable riding the bus or approaching groups of young people for fear that they might get hit, beat, verbally abused, assaulted. So there's a multitude of fears that our elders in the community and when I call elders, I mean anyone older than another individual. A 14-year-old, their elder could be a 20-year-old depending on the social setting. So as individuals, we have to begin to take back our neighborhoods and the mentalities of our young people. And it's going to start with the kids in our home. And then when we send those kids out, will we go out and check on them? Will we go out and become responsible for the products that we're sending to the rest of the world? And then when we send those kids out, will we go out and check on them? Will we go out and become responsible for the products that we're sending to the rest of the world? I tell educators all the time, and I talk with parents. And when I tell educators that I tell parents this one thing, the majority laugh, but I tell the parents, you know who you sent to school this morning. So if your kid is at school and they're acting kind of crazy and they're doing disrespectful things or their grades aren't well, then you come up to the school and you're yelling and cursing and acting crazy with the teachers, let's not be surprised. Parents know who they sent to school that morning. Yep. And that's the same kid that's showing up. And especially since these adults don't have a close relationship with them. So no adult's going to have the relationship with a kid they don't know as well as a parent will. Yep. So we have to be more responsible. We have to check in. We have to pop up at the community centers, the schools, the sports fields. We have to be involved. We have to step up as individuals and make sure that we wrap our arms around the community, and then those young people have to embrace that correction. Okay.
That's great. I was going to ask specifically youth, but I guess you kind of really touched on that. So you think that the most integral part, I would say, or the best way for us to move forward with issues regarding racial equality is dealing with kind of instilling certain values and certain pursuits within young people, within youth?
Yes. I think that's an individual thing. I think once each individual understands the bigger picture and the concepts that we're trying to put forward, then they gather together and rally around a collective mentality and a collective role. Right. Every individual has a role to play. And we're to a point where we're spending the majority of our resources on 6 or 7% of our young people, because we have a population of 6 or 7% that are causing harm and damage in our neighborhoods. Yep. And it's almost as if we're losing sight of the bigger picture because we're focused and reacting versus being progressive. Yep.
Great. How do you see community organizations as being influential factors of social progression?
I see community organizations being influential in that community organizations need to understand the populations they're serving. We as community organizations need to understand the fundamental things that we want for our own kids. So as a community organization, the approach needs to be, these are my kids and this is what I'm going to do. For my own personal kids, my child's going to get educated. My own kid is going to serve God. My own kids, we're going to go on vacation. We're going to do sports. We're going to do social activities. So as community organizations, when we begin to come at kids from that perspective, then we take kids under our umbrella and we treat them as our own. Yep. Some of the programs and things we're doing with SYVPI, same perspective. Right now we're running a Gpa program. And when we started running a Gpa program, I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people in the community. Why are you running a Gpa program? You know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing these things that are academics? And one of the main reasons is everyone is trying to collect information from these young people. You want to understand truancy, you want to understand tardiness, you want to understand suspension rates, you want to understand their grades, you want to understand reading levels, math levels. Well, what is the one form that all of those things are typically captured on?
GPA.
A GPA, a report card.
Yep.
But the funny thing is, that has to be a personal thing. That's personal to me because all the kids we serve, all 500 kids in the Central that we serve, I look at them like they're my kids. They're my nieces, nephews, brothers, cousins. These are my kids. So this is what I want for my kids. So what we've been seeing is by running a GPA program last quarter, we saw several kids that start off with a 0.2, a 0.1, and a 0.3.
Wow.
And those kids are now at a 1.2, 1.1, 1.3. We saw a bunch of kids that start off at a 0.9 and a 1.0, and a lot of those kids are at a 2.0, 2.3. And then, you know, the same with our 2-point kids are up to a 2.7, 2.8. And then our 2.8, 2.9 are just bumped over 3.0, 3.1. Yeah. So the purpose is to find a kid where they're at. And a lot of times we say meet them where they're at. We're not necessarily going to meet them. We're going to find you because I can't meet you in a place that I've never been. Yep. I wasn't a person that did terrible in school, but I understand it because a lot of my friends did. Yep. So we find them where they're at, and then we show them how to walk the steps. And a lot of that time is going to be spent asking the fundamental things. Are you doing homework? Who's looking at your homework? Do you understand you have work to do? What needs to be done for you to be successful? So you ask those open-ended questions, let them answer their own questions, and let them see themselves. But I just think that community-based organizations, we have to stop running programs. Programs typically have a beginning date and an end date. And I say that we're in 2015, so if we're still running programs, we're just really running speed dating. Yep. Speed dating, it begins quickly, it ends quickly, versus what are we going to do and how do we have a model of sustainability. We all say we want a pipeline, and so we run programs that lead into young people getting a job. But if there is no career at the end of said program, is it really a pipeline or is it more of a speed dating approach? So I think we have to be intentional about what we run, how we run it, and then as community-based organizations, when we go into hiring, we have to hire not necessarily the right skill set all the time because we always went on skill set and resume. We got to hire the right personalities to make the programs go. I can hire person A with all the credentials in the world and person B with a bunch of life skills. Well, if I'm dealing with kids that have a low academic understanding, the person with credentials is going to come at it from a clinical approach, where the person with the life skills, as long as we provide them with the right training, they're going to do more of a wraparound approach. Yep. And then once we get the kids, and once we meet them and take them to the next level, then our person with the clinical approach comes in and we do an assessment-based thing and we go into programs and kind of formalize things. But first, we have to find the kids. Yep. So community-based organizations have to get intentional.
Very well said. And you mentioned a lot throughout this conversation, kind of finding kids and kind of finding out where they're at, whether academically or personally or within their lives. We want to kind of elaborate a little more about how your organization does that.
So for us finding kids, we have a push-in model. So typically in these types of programs, us as community-based organizations, we have our place, we have our rental space on our place that we do business at. The school bells ring, the kids get out of school and we wait till the kids to come to them, versus us doing a push-in model and we go meet the kids where they're at. Right now, good example, summer youth employment's coming up. So we have all these kids that we're trying to get jobs. So typically, when you look at how organizations are doing, you're trying to get 200 kids jobs, and at the end of 3 weeks, you've passed out 50 applications because 50 kids are coming to see you. Mm-hmm. Well, it took us 3 days to pass out 200 applications because we went to Garfield, we went to Washington, we went to Madrona, we went to YEP, we went to Alder, we went to UDYC, we went to the schools, we met the kids where they're at, we gave them their forms. Forms are coming flooding in now, and then when the kids bring their form, I need a copy of your report card. Because when they give me the copy of the report card, we're able to leverage job, report card, and then there's that accountability piece.
Yep.
So all wrapped in one good stroke of the brush, we get many things accomplished, and now we're talking about college and next steps for young people. They're turning a report card. I'm immediately looking at the GPA, and I'm saying, excellent, you've come up a couple points, or hey, let's be mindful that it looks like you're leveling out, or your grades have dipped, and then we have a conversation. Did you stop doing homework? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you doing too much screen time? So there's a bunch of conversations we get to have, but in finding them, we have to do the school push-ins. We have to be the ones to get to our kids. Not saying that other organizations and communities aren't helpful, but if we're not going to lead the charge, how can we expect everyone else to do the work for us?
Exactly. Okay. What do you see as integral to community-oriented advocacy?
Intentionality. There has to be a sound plan that speaks to the lifestyles and the understanding of the community. There are a lot of good-willed individuals that come outside of a community that want to add depth to a community but don't have a full understanding. I believe that individuals have to at least have the understanding of walking in another person's shoes. You don't have to walk in another person's shoes to be able to help them and tell their story, but you have to have the understanding that such a thing exists. Yep. So when us as community, when we get together and we're not intentional about how we're providing services, we don't understand the young people we're providing services, and then we don't have a big picture concept, and then we're not able to walk the young people and those that want to be involved through the possible steps. It's almost impossible, because our young people, your age, you all, and younger, you all are very much hands-on. You guys are the technology society. You guys are the generation that gets information faster than any generation ever has on the history of the earth. Yeah. So when we don't have a big picture for you to look at and then able to walk you through the steps, we lose your focus quickly.
And lastly, how do you think the community can foster solution-oriented discussion regarding many topics like racial equality?
Solution-oriented discussions. I used to believe that they only happen in these town hall settings where everyone gets together and then you were able to put forth your ideas and your topics. But what happens in that is, in order to get some of these town hall meetings together, there's an agenda at the heart of the matter. So each organization has to begin to do some of their work, and then we have to be able to come together on a more even playing field. And the even playing field isn't always even by resources, but a lot of it's going to be evened out by the thought process and intentionality that goes into the original meeting. And what I mean by that is, we as community-based organizations have to get our stuff together. We have to know what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it, and we have to be able to see the bigger piece of the pie and stop doing the things that we're not good at. You have a lot of community-based organizations. They see kids, they meet a group of kids, and these kids want to play sports. So all of a sudden, this group, who typically ran the theater group, now they're trying to run sports camps. No, you partner with someone that runs sports camps. You invite brothers and sisters, and then you put on a theatrical piece that is workshops and entertainment. So we have to stop trying to be the ones that think we can do it all and make sure we partner and collaborate.
I think it's a very good point.
Go ahead.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap things up?
I can appreciate how we have organizations like MMRTI and the collaborations you're doing in the young people. I appreciate young people being able to learn a skill set and a life skill that is going to be able to allow you all the ability to move forward, whether it's being in front of the camera and back of the camera, setting up the camera. These are all necessary job skills. And we all as organizations need to be real intentional about putting these types of puzzles together and understanding that each young person is a different piece of the puzzle. And everyone needs to be their individual piece. And then the bigger picture would be allowing them to see that how they fit in to make the puzzle complete. So I appreciate this program. There's several organizations around the city I do appreciate and that are doing an excellent job. And everyone's doing a quality job in their own right. But we need to make sure we're doing a quality job according to what the community needs are.
And in the sphere of kind of Black History Month, we kind of wanted to bring up, especially since a lot of our audience is immigrants from Eastern Africa, we'll kind of ask how you see the immigrant community within Seattle or in King County or even the U.S. And kind of their relationship with this current progression towards social equality and the African American community. And so just kind of balancing out the immigrant and African American communities and the relationship that they've had over the past.
Well, I think paying attention to the central area, South Seattle and West Seattle, the immigrant community and the African American community that has been here for a while tend to get along very good. I think one of the pieces that are missing is we all don't tend to sit in the same circles and share meals together. We don't share academic understanding, and we don't share this focus on moving together as a group. I think a lot of the times we're seeing ourselves as different.
Yep.
And what the real difference is, me being African American, my grandparents and great-grandparents got here 6 generations before the immigrant population got here.
Yep.
And it's odd how one group got here before the other group, so the two groups see themselves as different. But when we were in Africa in one village, I didn't see myself as different than my great-grandfather who was, or my great-great-great-great-grandfather who was 6 generations before.
Yeah.
So regardless of what anyone says, we're still family. We were disconnected by an ocean, and now we're brought together back on the same continent. So now what do? I think one thing everyone sees is America itself has a culture of its own. Every culture that comes to America, within 2 generations, their kids become Americanized. Yeah. My family's from South Carolina. So in South Carolina would be American Africa. Yeah. So literally, I mean, you go miles and miles and miles, it's all African people, and everyone is still speaking Geechee and Gullah, mixes of Pidgin and French and Dutch. So those are some of the original African American people. Yeah. So then me being first generation Seattle, when I go back home, everyone tells me, well, you sound so white. You talk so this and you talk so that. Wow. And I remember my freshman year having a group of dudes and even my cousins, so 2 different groups. I have family back home and I have my cousins, and they were saying, well, you sound so white, you sound so this. And I kept telling them, really, are you sure? And they were like, yeah. And I told them, good, because I'm going to University of Washington. I'm paying a lot of money for this education. So if you don't hear my language changing, then I'm not getting my money's worth. So are you sure that I sound real proper speaking? So then it kind of changes how we view things. So now we have these 2 groups. And the 2 groups came over being afraid of African Americans and African Americans being afraid of those that are from the continent and born in Africa. But now that we're all together, the older generation is seeing the younger generation is becoming Americanized. Yep. And the funny thing is, the group that's becoming Americanized right now will be the grandfathers and grandmothers of kids that are fully Americanized in 2 generations. Yep. And so with that said, we have to maintain cultural sensitivity. Yes. We cannot get over here and pretend that we are from the continent of Africa. I see kids that would always say, I'm not African American, I'm American. And then my family being from South Carolina, my grandmother and great-grandmother and grandfather and my father, they would say, boy, you're an African in America. So I'm an African in America, yep. Just like all the other people that are Africans in America. Yeah. You all now are Africans in America. And that's who we are. So working together, we need to be able to sit down and figure out how we're going to get our young people into test scores and to do the right thing. We need to figure out how we're going to get them an understanding of, down to the simple things of how to graduate high school and get into college well. The main testing is SAT and ACT. And that is, my love is getting young people in. So we're looking at SAT. If you're really good at math, you can take the SAT. If you're not so good at math, you go ACT. Mm-hmm. So sharing some of those little secrets with your generation that's on its way to college, yep. Because it breaks down fear for the older generation. Yep. There are some kids that are brilliant at writing and terrible in math. Well, take an ACT. Mm-hmm. Because both forms are accepted in college, but I think sharing those little tricks and those wisdoms, yep. is going to break down some of these barriers. I think a lot of the parents still think that because one group speaks 3 and 4 languages and the other group only speaks English, that either someone's better or different, until their kids get to high school and no longer listen. Yep. Just like the same Africans, multiple generations, their kids no longer listen.
Yeah.
So with this youth violence thing, we're dealing with a bunch of kids that are Africans in America that have forgot that they're Africans, and that have forgotten that as Africans, we have a legacy of excellence.
Yep.
So Asian kids, white kids, Africans in America, Polynesians, once a generation has been in America, they all act the same. Yeah. Which is why youth violence is a mix of all of these kids who are now so Americanized. The Irish went through it, the Italians went through it, and now we're seeing the Africans that are in America go through it, and now we're seeing the new wave of immigrants go through it. The Russians are going through it. All this new wave, their first generation of kids, they're all going through it. So we need to really take a look at ourselves and see, how do we come together and learn from the group that's been here for 100 or so years, couple hundred years, and the group that's freshly getting here. The group that's freshly getting here has a set of resources. The group that's been here for hundreds of years have institutional knowledge because we've been here. Yep. How do we mix that together? So that needs to be our next talk and understanding. Yes. What do we do to save a generation of the new Africans in America from going through what the older generation of Africans in America have already been through? Yep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smalls.
Thank you. Good
to have you join us.
Hello, I'm Michael Garrett-Smalls. I'm the Central Area Director of Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative, and I'm the next door neighbor of MMRTI. MMRTI is an excellent program where young people and adults are able to come together in a grassroots effort with a bigger community understanding and provide digital media training and understanding for a group of young people that have all come together under leadership of the directors of MMRTI. Some of the things that I've been seeing is just interviews and access that MMRTI has provided to young people that they would not be able to get on his own. In-depth coverage of Seahawks, political people, every program under the sun, push into the high schools, push into the middle schools. Young people behind the cameras, young people setting up the cameras, young people setting up the screening, the editing, young people getting an understanding right now in present day that it would have taken years to gain or thousands of dollars to get in training. So I am just blessed and happy to be a part of this, and I look forward to seeing where MMRTI and its leadership will take this next generation of young people. Thank you.
Thank you.